Okay, today is going to be a slightly different episode. We are not going to talk a lot about education or other things, but rather we are going to use our imagination here and try to understand insomnia from a different angle. I find that imagination and thinking in metaphors, analogies is really helpful because it can help to give us something tangible from insomnia, like understand it better. Because once we name things, once we give it a form, a concept, or any sort of like idea, then suddenly you find that it's much clearer to approach this idea. You start seeing like some ways out, and in generally you feel more like you're you understand the situation better. So for today's kind of visualizing episode, I'm going to talk about this. So if insomnia would be a person, what would it be like? What kind of person it would be? What kind of characteristics it would have? And most importantly, how do we deal with this kind of people? And when I had, when I struggled myself with insomnia, I also tried to apply this kind of conceptual thinking and try to create name my insomnia, try to describe it or give it some sort of like a personality, so that I could easily understand how to approach it. And the way how I looked at it, at my insomnia, was that the personality or this kind of person would have generally two characteristics. The first one is this kind of scandalous, trait. It is this person, maybe like celebrity, or celebrity in maybe in a not the best light, because it is usually the person who feeds on any sort of attention, even on this kind of like hatred, or on some like drama, scandals, conflicts, and so on. They find a lot of joy in seeing others fighting with them. So one part of insomnia is like this, this kind of like scandalous person. And another part of insomnia, and another trait of insomnia, human trait, I would call, is this kind of a blabbermouth. The person whose words don't really match their actions. So you might find also in your experience that insomnia might be telling you a lot of kind of like threatening you. If you don't sleep, you are going to your life will be ruined, your health will be ruined, your family will stop loving you, or you will be fired, and so on. So a lot of scary scenarios, a lot of threats coming from that kind of like personality. But at the same time, if you really look at your life right now and seeing like, have those threats really came true? And I bet that most of you will actually find that yes, the threats were kind of like, they were believable, but at the same time you're still here, you're still healthy, sane. And that is the evidence of that insomnia is just strong on its words, or on its like messages that it sends us, but in reality it really has no power over us. So knowing those two kind of like characteristics of insomnia, scandalous and blabbermouth, how do we normally deal with this kind of people when we meet them in real life? Or let's say when there is a person at your work, there is this kind of person, or in your family, so someone who you have daily contact with. How do you deal with them? And most commonly people approach it with, let's say, fighting. One of the approaches is like to fight. They want to win, they want to really destroy that that kind of like personality as insomnia, and they spend a lot of energy on it. But as you know, that this is the food or fuel of insomnia. By investing our time and energy on it, we feel only depleted. This is why you might kind of say that, well, if insomnia doesn't really bring me any doesn't really harm me, then how come I feel tired, I feel exhausted, I just don't have energy on anything? And to me, that's usually a sign that it's exactly the our fight with insomnia that depletes energy, because it creates a very uneven situation. We try to get rid of it, but our trying to get rid of it feeds it. So that means that we spend energy while insomnia gets energy. And this kind of process is always happens like this. We can never win insomnia by fighting with it. So that makes this kind of approach of fighting very unsuccessful, kind of pointless, because we are just only make insomnia stronger. Another approach that usually people take is trying to avoid it. They try to escape meeting it face to face. So, for example, if you are afraid of bedroom, then you might find yourself like scared to sleep in your room and things like that. So you try to really not really irritate it, or not try to like trigger it or something like this. So usually this is where all sorts of sleep hygiene and creating perfect conditions for sleep comes in action. We try just not to bother our sleep much, not to bother insomnia, so it doesn't like wakes up and starts like again destroying everything. So we find like very fearful of that, and of course this kind of fearful reaction to that again feeds insomnia. So in the end we try to provide all the we try not to get in contact with it, and as the result insomnia just grows. We are not solving the situation like this way. The third way how people deal with this kind of like people is negotiate. And it seems logical, yeah, like in the real world, like if it would be a real person, then you would normally could talk and to achieve some understanding. But here negotiation with insomnia in the form of a person, it's kindly unsuccessful approach, because we know that insomnia is a blabbermouth, or is this kind of like person who will make promise or tell you something, but their actions will be totally different from their words. So that means that, let's say you say, okay, insomnia, I'm going to give up on drinking coffee, but I need you to give me some sleep. And at first, insomnia might tell you, yeah, sure, let's do it like this. So you kind of negotiated it. But in reality, what will happen is that even though you sacrificed your favorite, like drink, insomnia will still like keep kicking you, because it cannot sustain its promises. It cannot really make its threats come true, but it also doesn't fulfill what it promises. So it becomes a very disbalanced, partnership, I would say. So whenever you try to negotiate with insomnia by trying to change your lifestyle or change anything in your life, this is when you basically can be sure that it's not going to give you what you hope it will give you. The fourth approach, I would say, could be this ignoring. And at first it seems like logical, because knowing that insomnia feeds on our attention, feeds on our any like fighting with it and so on, it makes sense to kind of just pretend that it's not there. Well, it's not quite true, not quite like that, because insomnia also you cannot trick that kind of person. So by trying to be inactive or pretend it's not there, what happens is that deep inside you do it because you still have fear, because you still want to get rid of it. You don't want to have it there, so you just decide to just ignore it. But behind that inaction, there is still the same fuel that you give to insomnia. And in the long run, without really facing it, or without really understanding insomnia, you cannot really wait it out, or wait until it just goes away on its own, just because you ignore it. Which leads us to the last kind of approach, and I don't want to really call it approach. I just want to say that the only thing that actually brings insomnia down, the only thing that destroys it, is indifference. Being indifferent to whatever it says, whatever it does, whatever the outcome of the night is, being indifferent to that is what truly like starves insomnia from any attention, from any fighting, because it might seem like it's very similar to, to ignoring, but it's not quite the same, because to me, when we are indifferent towards something, that means that we understand how it works. We see it for what it really is, and we see that, this game is pointless. Insomnia is a, like, if it would be a personality, it's a pointless personality. It doesn't have any substance. It doesn't make sense to cooperate with it. It doesn't make sense to fight with it. It just, the whole thing just doesn't make sense. So why do I need to spend my energy on trying to deal with that, or trying to kind of negotiate with that person, or fight with it or avoid it and so on? Well, when I could just focus on something else, well, just knowing that it is still there, it can stay there as long as it wants. I don't really care what it does, what it says, and how it manifests itself, let's say, like whether I sleep or if I don't sleep. And then you find that there are some things in your life that are more meaningful, and those things need your attention more than insomnia, because insomnia, all it wants is just, it wants that energy, all that attention from you, but it never gives anything in return. So once you understand this kind of like pointlessness of the whole relationship building with insomnia, trying to fight it, escape it, and so on, this is when you become really uninterested in how the whole thing goes, and uninterested in the outcome. And this is where the paradoxical outcome happens, that by being indifferent to insomnia, this insomnia will really starve itself to death, and you will just find yourself that you are doing like things that matter to you, and sleep just happens. I hope that this analogy made sense to you. I know it's a little bit kind of unconventional, and feel free to ask me any questions or share your thoughts and comments. Make sure that you subscribe to this channel, and special thanks to my Patreon supporters. And that said, we'll see you in the next video. Bye.